My name is MacLeod. I work at Wind River, and I've been here for about 12 years now. I'm the user space tech lead. I've been working with our team in Blackfig, Naveen and Sandeep, and a few others, as well as Richard Purdy, and as you'll see, a larger cast on trying to continue to support Rust in Yocto. Sorry. The scope for the talk is I won't be talking about new features in Rust. There's a Rust blog and many other sources of information about that. I'll cover how Rust changes that have affected or should affect Yocto come into our world. If I've missed your use of or your contribution, whatever aspect of Rust and Yocto, let me know. I'm really interested to hear what people are doing with Rust and how it's going and what problems they have. Aside from compilation times, I've heard about that a few times. I think we understand that there's a problem. Maintaining Rust, as with all of Yocto, is a team effort. There's people listed on this slide who've been doing lots of work over the various releases, and everybody's work is certainly appreciated. And so I've just listed the various versions, various releases, and the corresponding Rust versions that are included in that release, and who did the work for that particular release. We're currently on master, and looks like version 169 will be the version we go with in the spring if the 6-week Rust update cycle continues. So back in Kirkston, which is something that Wind River is actually using in product, we had Rust 159. You really could only target x86 or ARM64 as a build environment. There was no Rust or cargo for the target. Rust SDK worked, but it really only if it matches your build host. There were no automated tests. It was basically the first import from the meta Rust layer, and it worked well enough to get going, but left a lot of room for improvement. So in Langdale, Richard Purdy got tired of the people trying to fix little things here and there, and dove in and spent a good solid 2 or 3 weeks understanding the Rust toolchain, simplifying the code, trying to make it consistent and fit in better with the toolchain design in Yocto. So the output was that you can now make Rust a toolchain feature with the variable shown here. You can support Rust on target, which I thought would be a long time coming, but a couple of weeks of Richard's time maybe is a long time, depending on the speed at which you're going. Unfortunately, when I tried this for the presentation, putting Rust on target was broken, but it's a fairly trivial thing, and we'll get that fixed fairly soon. Cargo didn't even build for target, but again, I'm not sure what the root cause is there, but don't think it's particularly bad. And I'm told that all of this worked for Langdale that I was testing on master, I think. So we'll fix those bugs, and we'll add test cases to catch such regressions and try to keep things going along well. Other major thing Richard did was proper SDK support to respect the SDK machine variables. So you can build ARM SDKs on x86 or vice versa. I haven't actually checked, but I think we actually support PowerPC64 because I know there's some people using PowerPC64. So I'm not sure if that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. And we added lots and lots of automated test cases. So I did want to mention that I probably not going to have a full half-hour presentation, so I'm open to questions along the way. Just speak up, or I'll try to monitor the chat as well. So continuing with Langdale, one of the great things is always being able to throw away code, and so because Rust can produce output for all targets, we could drop the Rust Cross Canadian, the Cross SDK, a whole swath of things in Langdale. And as you see from the output here, this is running on QEMU for master. There's support for 192 different architectures, 191, sorry. And we also allowed BV class extend to work in Rustbs, and turn the Rust target code into a BV class and remove special classes. So generally speaking, I think Richard's quite a bit happier with the state of the Rust recipes and classes now. And there are a few problems remaining. And so that's what we'll talk about in terms of development. Checking the chat. So one of the things we've been working on for quite a while, since mid-2021, is getting the Rust test suite into Yocto. And so it generally works quite well. There are about 18,000 tests, and only 100 are failing. They tend to be around documentation and things that are not super critical. We may get to 100% pass rate, but to merge right now, the problem is a nasty reproducibility issue, which people are having trouble reproducing, ironically. And so we'll try to get that fixed in the coming month or two and get things merged for the spring release. There's Rust also made the Yocto's claim to fame of being 100% reproducible go away because there's a reproducibility bug, but Sandeep has been working on that, and he thinks he has a patch or is close to a fix soon. So we'll be back to 100% reproducible, I hope. We've talked many times over the last few days about the build times for Rust. Alex Kahneman did make a big change that had a pretty significant increase, and I can show you a horrible graph and then a table about that. So here's the horrible spreadsheet, which is the build chart. There are two sections sort of above and below the line here. So you can see that we unpack and touch things, build the GCC cross compiler, and we build Rust LLVM native, which now takes still quite a long time, but not quite as long as it used to, and then Rust native. And finally, you can build lib Rust standard. And I think this was building Rust Hello World, and that's just a little blip at the end of the cycle. So if you look at that and compare the time for Rust native or the total Rust Hello World build on my particular non-monster machine for the various branches, you see that Rust native has gone from 1200 seconds to about 775, but the total time hasn't gone down by nearly that much because there's lots of overlap, and the whole chain still takes 28,000 seconds. So bit of an improvement, but and a little less annoying, but still kind of annoying. I probably should have switched these points. I'll talk about the second point first. The long build times are still annoying. We've talked about making it possible to optionally use pre-built Rust binaries, because the Rust toolchain does bootstrap from a pre-built toolchain, so we're already trusting that source of input, and we could use that for a lot of developer workflows. It would be an optional thing. The Rust Autobuilder and other people using Rust would still need to do the full set of building from source. Ultimately, the real problem is that the upstream Rust community doesn't seem to care about build time. As a Yocto user, you're probably not too surprised by that because most people build once and that's the end of it. So we may eventually get to a point where we understand the serialization of the builds and try to improve it upstream, but it's a bit of a long, hard slog. What else is next? I'm sorry, actually go back to my original point. What else have we missed in the Rust development? I went back and reviewed all of the Rust release notes. and really there was, aside from language features, which I've said are sort of out of scope, there wasn't a lot that really came up as terms of distribution specific information. One that came up to me was supporting debug info and splitting that off into separate files. We don't really do the work that way, but I'd need to look into it and maybe see whether that's useful or not. I did try playing with the dev tool, and of course, dev tool and Rust don't really get along yet. We probably need to integrate cargo bit export and fix up maybe other parts of dev tool. One feature that has come out in the last year or so in the Rust community is called Rust Analyzer. It's an implementation of the language server protocol for Rust. So it has features like auto completion and going to the definition and the general IDE sort of activities. Supports many code editors, the list shown here. And maybe we'd want to make that part of the SDK. I'd like to hear about what people think and if they make use of that and how they think it fits in. So I'm sure I missed other things. I sort of have my many things going on at once, so I don't get to spend as much time on Rust as I would like to. But I'm sure many people here are using Rust much more frequently than I am. I'd particularly like to hear about people using it as part of their application development or their system development, and we'll get some feedback and discussion. Thank you.